Hey guys, welcome back again for another Contagious Leadership Podcast. Lorianne, I hope you're excited.
I am. We are bringing back a guest from the past we're just going to love it. He's got a new topic to share with us.
What I like to call these types of guests are frequent flyers.
Yes,
frequent
I
flyers.
like that better. Frequent flyers.
Yeah, a frequent flyer to the show. On the off side of the show, we basically told Patrick, and you guys, if you haven't watched this program before, you're going to be quite pleased at the amount of knowledge and information that you're about to get from our guests. But I always tell them, after one or two times of coming to the show, whatever happens at this point, I'm no longer apologizing. You know the abuse you're going to get. So welcome back anyways. But we're going to be back in 30 seconds with Patrick, and we're going to get into goal setting as we're in the new year, but not just in a particular setting for yourself, but as leaders for your team and how you can help hold them accountable. Be back in 30 seconds. Donnie, get us out. All right, Patrick Verneau, welcome back again.
Listen, I'm going to start this off first. In case you don't know, I'm the youngest of 10.
Okay, right? All right. Now you're saying a lot. You're saying a lot.
The crap out of me. You can't do anything to me. You can't hurt me.
You can't hurt me.
You can't hurt me.
I love that. Anyways, Patrick, welcome back again. So we're going to be getting into not so much just goal setting. So we're not talking about goal setting in particular for the individual. By all means, everyone's talking about this. We're in the new year. We're starting to push through in the beginning of first quarter. The reality here is that as leaders, most of the times, who's helping us help them, right? How do we help our team achieve the goals that we're setting, whether it be personal, financial, in the business? And that's what we're getting into today, correct?
That is correct. Exactly what we're getting into.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and give you an opportunity real quick. For those who don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself? We'll give you a few minutes, and then we'll come back to Lorianne, and we'll go ahead and get this started.
Sure. So Patrick Verneau, I run a company called S.M.A.R.T Leadership Group. S.M.A.R.T is named after my dad, his middle name. I also host a podcast called Learning from Leaders, and I recently published a book called The Leadership Bridge: How to Engage Your Employees and Drive Organizational Excellence. And this really is part of the work that I do. I love this space. To me, it's all about, it's like athletes. It's like dealing with leadership and employee athletes, trying to get them to really rise above their best. That's what we're here to do.
Ooh, this is going to be such a great topic because I love setting goals. But I might be one of those people that, which is why we're talking about this. I forgot about these that I set back, in the beginning of the year. But so we're talking about this from the perspective of, as leaders, how do we help our team set goals, but more importantly, achieve those goals by the end of the year? So Patrick, what's the first thing? Because I would imagine it's going to be hey team, everybody make your goals. What do you want to accomplish this quarter, this year, et cetera?
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point though, Lori, about setting goals is the easy part, right? That is the easy part. It's the follow through and the execution on the goal. It's the difficult part. I did a post not that long ago on my newsletter about goal setting. For those of you that watch Seinfeld, you might be familiar. There was an episode where Jerry goes to the car, a car rental place. He has a reservation there, but they gave his car away. So he doesn't have the car. And he makes this whole monologue about how you are great at taking a reservation, but not fulfilling the reservation. Do you remember that episode?
Oh my God. Yes. And anyone who's ever traveled knows this.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a story myself where I'm flying in to Des Moines, Iowa. I had this booked. I get in and it's gone. And I'm like, so I reserved a large vehicle because I was coming in with a party of 4, and you got rid of it or you don't have it. Well, we don't really carry the vehicles. We just reserve them, hoping we'll get a car in. And I was like, well, 24 hours ago when you knew you didn't have one and you knew I was flying in, nothing said, hey, maybe we should go get a car. So for the next hour and a half, they're running around working with other rental spots to get me a vehicle. But yes, and if you've traveled before, especially in any level of business, you know how funny that skit is. And we already know how old you are. Just
that's true, right? It's a double. You answer 2 questions.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're great at taking reservations, right? But you can't deliver on it. And I think that's how goal setting is, right? We're great oftentimes at setting the goals. It's the delivery of the goal that we struggle with.
Well, yeah, because it's like, here's my wish list.
Yeah.
I want to do this. Like people, I think that's exactly what they do. They just write down a list of things that sound good,
Right.
that deep down inside, they're just like, I would like to really do this, but oh yeah, these look a little familiar from last year too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Well,
especially
you know what I noticed is they tend to look familiar because nothing tends to grow.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing
Well,
tends to grow. What was that, Patrick?
If you didn't hit it the first year, you just get to put it back on there again, right?
Right. Yeah. There's no penalty for that.
And so what do you see in, as a leadership coach, as you know, an expert in this in industry, Patrick, before we get into how we do this from a leader, what are the biggest mistakes you see, not just leaders make, maybe even companies, but what do we see as mistakes from individuals who don't come close? Let's just use that example first. The ones that don't even come close to getting to their goals, what are the biggest mistakes you see them make?
Follow up or follow through. I would say that's the biggest one. And the way I often talk about it, I think like when we talk about performance reviews or setting goals at the beginning of the year, again, another one of those exercises I think that often is wasted in organizations. And it's too bad because I think it's one of the biggest missed opportunities when people set goals within an organization. But the reason is that we don't continually check up to see how are we doing on that. And I would compare it to if we're on the East Coast and we said, you know, I'm going to go to California. It's going to take me 12 days to get there. I'm going to point my car west and I'm going to start driving, and I'm not going to get out of my car. And you have to imagine that you could do this until day 11 to see where I am. What are your thoughts in regards to how close do you think I might be to San Francisco if that's where I want it to go on day 11? Way off. Yet this is what we do with performance management in organizations all the time, is that we set the goals at the beginning of the year, and then all of a sudden by month 11, we realize, oh, we got to pull these things out again to do our performance reviews. And it's like cramming for an exam. We don't really know what we were supposed to be doing, and we've got to go back and figure out how we're going to get there. But if I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say, the performance reviews, and I know you and I have had this conversation, not on the show, but performance reviews are once a year.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be. Like, why are managers, and this is sort of like, I'm tying this in, like, we wait all year to try to correct behavior. Why are we waiting till it's time for your annual review to say, like, hey, like, you're way off your goals, so sorry. You don't qualify for your raise now.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about it's funny. I know my team's smaller and I get to do this, but I've never felt this way. And I've always told everybody that works for me, as I try to, first off, I like to let them know as often as possible. that they are doing a good job as many times as I can to let them know that they're important to me, they matter. But most importantly, I let them know very clearly, if you are not on track, if I'm not happy, like, you're going to know, like, right away. I'm not going to wait. I'm going to tell you right away to make adjustment. I think personally, annual goal reviews are the biggest waste of time on the planet. I think they're stupid.
Next to SMART goals.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a little bit of a that's controversial.
Let's throw down. Right
all right, let's get into that. Let's get into that right now. And I have to agree with you. So we know that SMART is your specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. We're not saying that those aspects are bad, right?
Right.
What about SMART goals doesn't work?
I think they're too cumbersome for most people, and it becomes just an activity that people do, right? And they try and make things up. And I will tell you, you said it's what? Realistic?
Yeah, the realistic. So
is
yes.
It results?
It's realistic.
Right? There can be confusion as to what it is. And again, that's another thing that I struggle with in terms of what does it really mean? And again, it's not that I don't think those things are important, but I think when you're asking people to put something together, there's too much there. Now, here's what I developed that I use is what are called set goals. So just like SMART, there's the specific, which I think is really important. And just like at the end, there's the time-bound piece of this. But if you think about SMART, there's really not a place in there that talks about what's the why behind this? What's the emotional drive to make this happen? And again, I think that's the most important part to not setting the goal, but to the follow through on the goal. If you don't have a strong enough why, your excuse will be as to why it's not that important. And there is an activity that I will have individuals do to really try and drill down to what is the why? Why is this important to you? Because if we can get to that, the likelihood of executing on that is far greater.
Can I jump in here, Lorianne?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about something. I was watching a recent documentary. I believe it's on Netflix. It's in regards to Elon Musk and some of the recent achievements and stuff that he's done. I think we're really fortunate to be alive during a time like this where we have some incredible innovators. But you look at someone like Elon Musk, and how can you not use what he's done as reference points to so many things, right? If I look at the SMART goal, and this is one of the things that's always bothered me about the SMART goal, and it's funny that you picked this letter, and that was realistic. What we would consider to be a realistic goal is only limited by our ability or inability to really understand what can be achieved. And if we are limiting ourselves to what we think is realistic, we're already going to be setting goals that do nothing for us to grow, right? As an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, I think many times you're forced to be in positions to do things that are not realistic. Everything about building these businesses doesn't make any sense. You're trying to accomplish things with limited budgets or resources. You're trying to build processes and systems, and you're doing all of this in a small time frame, and you're learning in the process. I'm going to go back to that story. If Elon Musk would have tried to set a realistic goal, then he would have done what NASA took 30 years to do. He did it in less than 10, and he did it at 1/9 the budget. Like 1/9 the budget. And think about this, in just a few years, did you ever think, I thought it was fake when I started seeing this. Did you ever think we would see a rocket launch and come back and land on an X? On an X, like it comes back. Nobody thought that wasn't even in the scope of realistic. For decades, we've been dumping these things in the water or in space. He got him to come back. And I think it's just insane if we really stop to think about it. And I think right now in the last decade, we've been inundated with so many incredible influencers and innovators and people out there just doing incredible stuff. And we're moving at such a rapid rate that I think we've become numb to the idea that we have to be in a place where we can push ourselves. And I like where we're going to go on this. In this goal setting, we're going to be pushing ourselves to find new boundaries, right? New lines. It's not about realistic. It's about how far can we go and how do we get there actually accomplishing these goals, actually achieving these goals, right?
Yeah.
Not just saying, I'm going to set this up. And you're right. For years, I was part of corporations where you just did this as an exercise. It was a fun exercise. And literally, like, nobody, within weeks, like, it was it. You never talked about it again. You never had meetings. You never had follow-ups. And then somewhere it would be on a metrics. You said you would do this. I'm like, oh my God. Like, okay, when's the last time you reminded me about this, Mr. Manager?
Doesn't sound smart.
Yeah. That doesn't sound smart at all.
No. So, a couple things on that, Rigo. When you talk about, right, these stretch goals almost, there are a couple letters that, that I've played around with here, because I think there's a dance that goes on between expectation, right? That you set wildly important goals or audacious goals, however you want to put it, the stretch goals, but there has to be a belief. You have to feel the expectation that you're going to be able to achieve that. And that doesn't, some people might be there, oh God, here we go, the power of positive thinking, that you just think good thoughts and it happens. That's not it at all, because the expectation must be combined with discipline. And that's that you actually take action to make the expectation materialize. You have to do both.
So let's talk through that, because we can say that. Now, how do we move into actually, like you said, taking action to actually see these things materialize? How do we go? How do we do that? I'm a manager. I have a small team. I have a dozen folks I'm working with. Let's use this as here we go. I have a sales team. Okay. A handful of them are sales. I have inside sales, outside sales. I have some administrative folks. And we're all working together. So there's a dozen of us, and we have to all work together, and we need to all hit the same end goal as a department. How do I start working with a team like this to help them actually take action in these goals we're setting?
So think of it like 3 P's, right? So the letter P. So if you think about this like a Venn diagram, to me, there are 3 components of this. One, there's the planning part. One, there's the practice part. And the third sort of sphere in this Venn diagram is the persistence part. That we need to have all of those. The planning part is what we talked about initially, is those set goals. How do we set the goals? That's our planning. That's where we get the foundation. But then it's on to the next part, and that's the practicing piece. And to me, that's the ongoing check-ins and making sure that we're doing the things that we set up in the planning section. And then, as I see it, as my role as a manager or somebody that's leading a group, I'm involved in the persistence part of that, almost to give them support and to cheer them on if that's what needs to be done, to make sure that, when things aren't going well, that as long as they're doing the things that we've talked about, that I'm encouraging them to keep moving forward.
Okay, so we've talked specific. So now in a set goal,
so
let's get into E.
So that's the emotional part. And for anybody that's familiar with root cause analysis, really that's the same approach that I use with this. So let's just use the example of losing weight. Let's just say that as the year comes, I said, I want to be healthier this year, right? Well, there's nothing specific about that. But if I said, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Okay, so now we've got that first part, right? It's much more specific in terms of what I want. So now I might go into, well, why do you want to lose 10 pounds? Well, I want to lose 10 pounds because I just don't feel as though I have a high energy level anymore. That 10 pounds is weighing on me. Why do you want a higher energy level? Well, I want a higher energy level because my youngest son is in the 7th grade right now. He's starting to play football, and I want to be able to go out there and coach and be on the field with him. Well, why do you want to be able to coach on the field? Well, because as he's going into high school, I'm going to see him less and less, right? And I want to be able to build that time now. Okay, well, why do you want to build that time with them now? Well, because I know that if you look at some of the research out there, it says that by the time they turn 18, we've spent probably 90% of the time that we will spend with our children by the time they're 18. And I want to build a legacy now so that when he's an adult, we have a relationship together. So now if you think about that, right, this is not about 10 pounds anymore. This is about a legacy with my son, so that when I stroll into the kitchen and there's oranges and Oreos sitting on the counter, that I might think twice about having the Oreo when I know why am I really doing this?
Because we've uncovered those emotional reasons, which I'm sure, like in just using that weight loss example, it's like, I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, great. And maybe they said that because like, well, like it's that time of the year where like, I've got to get ready for the summer or something. So it sounds good, but then we start peeling back the layers. And in your particular example, like those were really compelling reasons to lose the weight. But I would also imagine the opposite could happen, that somebody might be like, well, gee, actually, I don't want to do this.
And that to me is it's like the strainer for this, is to say, is this really that important to you? Because if you can't go deep on this thing, then the likelihood of you following through, you'll do it when things are going well, but all of a sudden when you get a roadblock, you're gonna be like, man, screw it, I'm not doing this.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's the emotional element that attaches us to it.
Yeah.
No, that's what keeps us tethered
right
to what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. And we can do it in a work setting too. You could say a promotion. I want to get promoted. Why do you want that promotion? All of a sudden, maybe a promotion goes from, I want this title, but what does this title afford me? It affords me a higher income, so that maybe my kids, if I've got kids, that I can provide them private school that I can't now. Whatever that might be, but there's a deeper reason to this that we can get down to. It's not about a promotion.
I love that. Okay, so I think I think in the this emotional aspect, I think we could easily get down a road where we're just talking a lot about this, because the truth is that we have emotional tethers to everything. Because I mean, you can have somebody that's looking to get to reach a certain goal because they think they need to have fulfillment, but the reality is that there is something else that they need. And then now what happens is they've removed the negative emotional weight on something, and now reaching and achieving goals becomes more exciting and even more doable because they've removed an emotion, a negative emotion. So I think really exploring the emotional place in these goal settings, I think is wildly important. You had talked offline a little bit to us about the way that a mind thinks. You spoke, and I want you to talk about this a little bit. You spoke to a listening expert on this. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think that this is important for us to understand. Why are you asking so many of the same questions? Why do we keep asking ourselves, okay, why? Like, why does this matter? And then why do we keep asking the same question again, holding ourselves accountable to give a different and deeper answer? Can you get into that a little bit, Patrick? Because I think for our listening audience and viewers, this is an important part of the process that we shouldn't skip, and for a reason why.
Yeah. And at the end of this, I'm going to talk about, I think, a book that would help people out in regards to coaching their employees as well. That's very easy to follow. But there's a gentleman I interviewed on my podcast not that long ago, and he wrote a book called How to Listen. His name's Oscar Trimboli, and he talks about in his book what's called the 125-400 rule and the 125-900 rule. And the 125 component of it basically says that we speak at about 125 words per minute, but we can listen or take information in at about 400 words a minute. That's why if you listen to books on tape or audiobooks, you can speed them up to 1.5 or 2 times speed and generally still get all of the information, because your brain is processing it still in a speed that it's able to comprehend. What to me is more interesting is the 125-900 is that we think at about 900 words a minute. And to me, the real enlightening part for me as I listened to that was that oftentimes if you think about 900 words floating around up here, and when I say something, maybe it might not come out right the first time. What I really want to formulate for a thought here, it just sort of comes out. But if I give myself more time to sort of process this, it might pull in some of those other things where all of a sudden this becomes more clarified in terms of what I mean. So to your point there about the 5 whys, really allows people to think about what else is going on up there that really is why this is so important.
And I would think, like, even as an individual that's going through this exercise themselves also, that you're going to discover new reasons why also. Like, why do I want to lose 5 pounds? Let me think about that a little bit more, because I want this. Well, why is that? I mean, it just takes us down this road that I think is so important, that I actually see this as, like, the more that we're talking about this, can you imagine if managers actually did this, how this would impact home life? Because we're teaching people how to set these goals at work, and we're going to make sure that we're supporting them in a way that's really effective. Can you imagine how this could impact somebody like, you know what? I did these amazing things last year at my place of employment. Here's what I want to do in my personal life this time.
Without question.
I'm going to do the exact same thing.
I agree. I think things are changing for sure, where the employer who understands empathy and understands, the importance of a person's personal development and situation, married, not married, parent, not parent, understanding where they are. To me, I cannot stress the importance of it. It used to drive me nuts when a company would say that, your personal life and your business life can't mix. And I would say, my personal life is my business life. 3/4 of my life, I am here with adults that are not my family. This affects my personal life. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
It's not my personal life, not here. This is affecting who I am as a husband, as a father, as a friend. They are one. If I am out of sync in one area, I will eventually break in the other. You can't be out of balance. We had a guest the other day that spoke, and they said in harmony. And I love that. We can't be out of harmony in the different areas of our life. And I think that that's absolutely important that you specify the emotional aspect here in setting goals. It's important. And I think that is good that you brought it up. I'm really happy about that. So now we're going to get into T. Can we get into T, or are we done with E?
So T's just about time bound. So you've either got to look at putting a line in the sand and saying this is going to be done by February 1 or March 1, whatever that is. But the other type of time bound that you can do is to say, I'm going to exercise 3 days a week, right? So it's not about a time bound. This never ends, so to speak. I'm just going to make sure that I do this a certain number of times, or whatever it might be in a work setting, but I'm going to make sure that I'm doing these things. This is what I commit to on a regular basis. I'm going to do these 2, 3, 4 times a week, right? That's it.
And with those time bombs, as you're calling it, so do you encourage, like the managers, to encourage the employee who's setting this goal? Like, if it's going to be like, you're going to do this 3 times a week, do you, like, put it in the calendar now? Like, do you set aside that time now, or just...
Yeah, no. So I encourage to look at this, break down a year in terms of a quarterly basis, and say, what are you going to do by the end of the quarter, right? What are you going to do in this month? What do you need to have accomplished, right?
I was actually going to ask that. I'm really glad that you said that. So you're taking the goal, your core,
right now on a weekly basis. Okay, so if this is what you said you're going to accomplish by the end of the month, what do you need to do each week to make sure that happens? And all we need to do at that point, I think the problem here is that managers think like, oh God, this is going to take a lot of time. And I would argue that it's counterintuitive, that it takes less time than your crappy cramming at the end of the year and you get nothing done. Whereas what we can do here, because I'm all for what I would tell an employee, you need to drive your own development here. That your manager is there to advocate for you, to make sure that you can get to the level you want to go to, but it's your job to do the work. Right? You can't rely on them to do the work. And to me, if we meet once a week and I say, you know what, by this week, this is what I'm committing to do, this is what I need to do, then for us to check in, it might be just a question of saying, did you get there? What happened during the week? Were you able to hit your numbers? Yep, I'm all set, or nope, I didn't hit it. Well, what got in the way? What do you think is going to allow you to get back on track for next week? How can I support you?
I love
Boom,
that.
we're done.
Drive your own development and make it simple. Like, what worked? What didn't work? All right.
How can I support you?
Yeah, that's it. How can I support you? Let's readjust for next week.
Right.
And let's keep going. End of month, same kind of concept. How are we doing? Where are we at?
Boom.
End of
So
quarter, how we do? I love that. I love that.
Right. We don't end the end of the quarter all of a sudden like you're way off track, because you would have known long before. Because maybe it's an opportunity to say, you know what? That goal that I had set before, 2 other projects have come into play. I'm not going to be able to accomplish that. Okay. What do you think we need to do to readjust this? Boom.
Yeah. And it's not a failure of not being able to achieve the goal. It's the fact that things change, which is why we need to be visiting this on a frequent basis to check, not just because we can't do it, but because now things have changed and we need to readjust priorities in these goals. No, that's so important. And
these are short check-ins. Because like you were saying, Patrick, earlier, that a lot of times managers think, oh, like, great, like one more thing that I have to do. Now I have to monitor their goals. But we're talking about how to go last week. Did you hit your numbers? Did you not hit your, like whatever your goals, your metrics are that you're measuring, like what's getting in the way? How can we correct it? I mean, we're talking about like a 5-minute meeting almost to course correct.
So listen to this. It wouldn't even have to be that. If as a manager, you might even be able to say to them, okay, here's what you said you're going to accomplish for the week. Here's what I want you to do. Reach out to me only if you're not able to accomplish that. If you weren't able to do it, reach out to me and let's figure out, we'll get together and figure out how to readjust on this. But other than that, boom. But I'm not gonna let that go a month or a quarter for that to happen. We're just gonna I get the text and I might say, okay, what's the commitment for next week? What do you need to do by next week to make sure that you're staying on track? Same thing. So the only time you need to really reach out to me in the month is if there are problems. If you're not on track, then let's circle back around, right? Because nobody has a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. Nobody.
But okay. But do you think, I mean, we're talking about like a lot of trust issues here between, the managers and who they're leading, that somebody's going to be like, I don't really want to admit that I didn't hit my numbers last week, that I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I mean, that can both work as a motivator for like, I am never going to be able to I never want to send my manager that email that says I didn't do it. That can be motivating. But at the same time, like, what if you do have to send that? Do you find that people might actually be hesitant to send that email?
So
and be honest?
I think in that regard, it's the relationship. So we're talking about cables. The model that I talk about a lot is that when you've built a relationship with the people that you work with, they're not afraid to do that, because they know that you're not there just to punish them. You're there to support them. We'll find a way to get this done. And to me, it's like a social contract that we are here to support each other. I will provide for you. You need to provide for me too. Right.
So you talked earlier in some of the elements that are important in building blocks of these goal sets and setting and you had talked about scoreboards and accountability. And I think that really that's where this comes down to, right? Especially if you're leading a team and you're making these goals visible and there is a scoreboard that is tracking this, not only for the individual, if you have a way of having to, report and return, the deal, then what happens is I think you can not only gamify the process, but you are now building that accountability within each other, within the team, within you and that person, to have to be honest about it and being okay with the fact that a 0 is a number. In fact, 0 is a hell of a lot more effective than not tracking.
Yeah.
Because a 0 gives a value that says, I didn't do the work today. I didn't do the work this week. Not tracking says, I'm going to avoid taking accountability to the 0. And it has little to no effect versus the 0, right?
Yeah. I actually have a great story along this line. So
awesome. Let's hear it, Patrick.
One of my favorite books in this area is a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It was written, there are 3 authors to it, Chris McChesney, Sean Covey, and Jim Hewling. And I interviewed Jim Hewling on this book. I love this book, and everybody has their own, right? That there are a couple others that I've used before, The One Thing, and another one called the 12-week year. And to me, it's like you find something that works for you. And for me, it's the four disciplines of execution. And it talks a lot about, the first part is setting a wildly important goal that you guys can agree on. The second part is focusing on lead versus what they call lag indicators. The next discipline, the third one, is around creating a scoreboard for everybody to be involved with. And the last one is creating accountability among the team, among the group, right? It's a great process. But part of the wildly important goal is that the group on a great level has to be able to set what is the goal, right? So there's inclusion in terms of how that goal is set. That it can't just be me as the manager coming in and saying, got a great goal for us, this is what we're going to do, because people haven't bought into that. So I was talking to somebody that I used to work with in the pharmaceutical industry not that long ago, and I mentioned this interview with this individual, and the person said, we implemented that book within our company. And I thought, oh boy, this has got to be great. She goes, it failed miserably. We had managers leave. And I said, why? What happened? She goes, because what happened was they tried to force us to then, it turned into like this check the box exercise on each of those, which defeated the whole purpose of what this was meant to do, right? So it's how organizations or individuals within organizations take a good thing and then they screw it up.
Thank you for that. That's a great story too.
I think that's really easy to do.
Yeah, it's and too common.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking of the people. You're thinking of yourself.
Yeah, that's where the empathy comes in. That's where the emotional tether, like, why do these things matter? Like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why does it matter for the manager?
Yeah.
Like, recently, and I was with my project manager yesterday evening. He doesn't live locally, so he comes up every few weeks, spend time with the team, and we were spending some time together. And I was working on some of the aspects of why these things matter to me. Like, what am I trying to achieve in this new year for my team, as I'm looking at how can I do more for their growth? Like, and it's important that our team knows why it matters. Like, I'm not just trying to hit a number. Like, the number is the indicator that says I now have the resources I need to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And I want them to know, as a manager, I think it's very important that you understand, hey, I've been here 10 years and I finally have the team I've always wanted. And I've been working really hard to get bonuses and all these wonderful things implemented. You guys have them. You've been here a year, 2 years. I went 7 years without them. See, a lot of people who build up in organizations, you know what I'm talking about. You were one of the first. You were the one that convinced them to pay for cell phones, to allow people to work remotely, to add certain bonuses in. There's so many folks that are in these management roles, and I think they forget to tell the team why it matters to them. Like, hey, I've invested a lot of years, and if you can achieve these goals, like, it's a win, it's an accomplishment for me, and all the years of sacrifice that I've put in will finally pay off. And I get to ask for more for you and for me. So, right, help me help you. Help me help you. And I think a lot of times managers don't do that. Here's the goal. Here's what management wants. Here's what corporate wants, versus saying, this is what I go through when I go and fight on behalf of us, on behalf of you. Here's what I've had to have endured the last few years. And these wins, this is how it wins for everybody. All of a sudden now you have an emotional response from your team to understand why it matters for you as the manager, not just because I said so.
Yeah. So if you think about that, I mean, we're wired that way for the because, to understand why. So even the goal setting exercise that you might ask somebody to do, I'm asking you to do this because, right? This is why. It's not just a dumb exercise that's coming down from corporate. This is why I'm asking you to do this. This is what the outcome is going to be of this. And it's interesting. So I'm like the Cliff Clavin here. I'll give you another story here, or another piece that I think reaffirms that, because is that there was a study that was done years ago with a photocopying machine. And what they did was they had 20 people lined up making copies, and they had one person that would come into the front of the line and basically say, do you mind if I come to the front of the line because I'm late and I've got to make 5 copies? So it was about 93% of people let this person in. But when another person came up to the front of the line and said, do you mind if I make 5 copies? Do you mind if I get in line and make 5 copies? Only about 60% let this person in. So the researchers then thought, well, maybe it's just because of the reason. Everybody's been late for something, so they let this person in. So he said, well, let's do it a third time. And what we'll do this time is we'll have them go to the front of the line and say, do you mind if I get in front of you to make 5 copies because I have to make 5 copies?
I'm curious. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. How'd that go?
Percentage. 90+% of the people let this
all because of the word because?
Honestly, that would make me laugh. If someone's like, can I cut in front of you because I just want to cut in front of you? I'd be like, go ahead.
I don't want to wait in line.
Like, go ahead. It's 5 copies. Like, go ahead. That's funny.
The rationale behind this was that there's a reason behind it, right? That our brains think to make logic of this, of like, okay, well, there's a reason why. Right? As crazy as that might sound, that was what these researchers found. So, and I do believe that, though, because it's so important.
Because is very important.
Yeah,
it is.
Really is.
You're telling somebody a reason. Yeah.
Here's why I want to do this. There's the uncovering all those 5 whys.
I'm asking you this question because, right? So because, somebody might be thinking, why are you asking me those questions? The reason I'm asking you this question is because. So now you take away any, them thinking you're nosy or whatever. You've told them this is the reason I'm asking you this.
Okay, so
do you got another question? I have
no,
a question.
Okay. Look, Patrick. All right, here we go. You're gonna have to bring us in on this one, Lori. But it just reminded me of a funny story. I was at a huge conference and at a hotel. You know how these things go. And you got to like beat everybody to the Starbucks line. God. And there's like 100 people in the Starbucks line. And I'm like, shit. Like, I got to get in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to get there. And I just thought it was funny because there was, I don't know, at least 30 to 40 people in line. And everybody's, all business and uptight. You can tell they got up way early. They look great. Like, they look like they're up. I'm barely making it because I was entertaining clients all night. And so I run up and I go to the line and I'm like, oh, nope. I just walked right up to the front and I go, hey, I'm going to buy your drinks if you just get my stuff, right? He was like, yeah. I'm like, okay, here's my order. Here's my cash. And everybody in the back, like, give me dirty looks. I go, hey, don't get mad because you didn't think of this first. Like, that was an easy buy. Yeah. Eat $5 to get all the drinks I needed for my clients and me, like right now. Like, so
I have to give you an A+ for that. Was very creative.
Well, funny enough was now that's all I do. I don't even wait anymore. I just walk up and see who wants me to buy their Starbucks.
Who's in?
It works every single time. I'm like, who wants me to buy their Starbucks? Okay, great. You're going to give me your place in line. I'm going to order. Like, thank you. Bye-bye. It works all the time. Anyways.
That's good. Patrick, what about when employees or the people that you're leading make either too small of a goal that's too easy to achieve, or one that is audacious, like it's way out there?
Yeah.
What's your advice for handling those situations?
Yeah. So it's good segue. So there is actually what we call GROW. And I didn't come up with this, but I find it pretty useful as we talk about managing or helping others to set their goals. And GROW is another acronym. And those that know me know that, I love this. And I think it's probably because my attention span is short, and anytime I can chunk stuff, it helps me to remember it. So GROW is about goals, about reality, about obstacles, and about sort of a way forward. So the first part we kind of talked about, right, is that we're helping set goals, right? So that's the GROW part. The next part is the part about reality, right? So, and this can work to what you're talking about. and I would say, especially on the side that somebody sets a goal that's really too far out there, that you sort of take a look and say, what's the reality of what's our current situation? What's the reality of it? And I know we're, in some regards, we're kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth where we say, be wildly audacious, but also, right, let's be a little realistic here. And, an example of that might be, I'm not a runner and I say, I'm going to run, under a three hour marathon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's exactly right. The reality is I can run a marathon, but I shouldn't try to expect to come in first. So the goal can be audacious in the fact that, I've never run a marathon and I'm going to run a marathon. That's a huge goal. But to say I'm going to be
under 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. That's the unrealistic standpoint, right?
So, and to me, that's the part of as a manager that you're able to have that conversation of really saying, right, let's look at this from a reality standpoint. What do you think is realistic here? Right. So then the next part I think is really important in terms of as we talk about helping employees to grow, right? So we have goals, we have reality, we have obstacles next, is what do you think is going to get in the way?
Yeah.
Right. Let's start talking about those things now. Right. You've said what things do you think are going to get in the way? Because now we start to build a plan for if those things show up so that you start to close exits is the way I look at it from people coming and saying, I couldn't do it because this happened. Well, we already kind of did a run through on that. And this is what you were going to do if that did happen. So where are we on that? Right. So I think that's important. Another thing in coaching that we would often do or do is that we'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely essential for you, where does this fit? It's an 8. Okay. So I know that we've got 2 points before this is what would get in the way? What's that 8 or 9 that's going to, or 9 or 10 that's going to get in the way of you, that's going to become more important than this, right? Let's start sort of talking about those things now.
Just being prepared for those things.
Right.
And so that when those obstacles do show up,
well,
you're
they will.
not surprised.
That's
They're going to.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And then the W is the way forward. Okay.
Way forward.
So now we've sort of talked about this. What's our plan going forward from here? How are we going to move? So we've set it up. We've set the goal, the grow. We've talked about the realities. Are we in Stretchville or are we in La La Land, right? So we kind of know what are the obstacles. Let's talk about, realistically, we've kind of been down this road before. What do we think is going to get in the way? And then lastly, okay, now that we've sort of worked through all those things, how are we going forward from here?
Now here's my follow-up question is, do you think people actually need a mixture of both of these? Actually, I should say all three. Some goals that are super easy to achieve, some goals that are, these are very realistic, and even the far-fetched ones. Because I look at all these goals as like, who am I going to become in the process of achieving all of these goals? Because I say to my clients, they might set goals for how many different stages that they want to get on, and so I'll just say, like, during the course of our time that we're working together, they might pick the number 5. I usually like to say, well, let's double it. What are you going to be disappointed if you reach 7? When your original goal was 5, I may just set 10. You're not going to be disappointed at 7.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And again, what I would sort of speak along those lines is that even with those really far out ones, that we probably have to set wins along the way, landmarks that we're going to be able to hit they keep us motivated. Like we can sort of, okay, we did that, we accomplished some of these things, even part of that wildly important goal or audacious or stretch or whatever.
Patrick, I was about to get into that. I think that's what it comes down to in the scoreboard and the accountability. When you look at your 4 disciplines of being able to execute something, the wins come in your score. I mean, that's where you celebrate, right? So if you're tracking and scoring your weekly hit list, to achieve your monthly list, to achieve your quarterly, to achieve your annual, the wins come in your daily and weekly scoreboard. Like, hey, I did 7 out of 10 today. I did 8 out of 10 today. I did 10 out of 10 today. And then you look at your week and you can say like I did a 98. I had a 95% out of my 100% this week. There's my win, right? And when you know that your numbers are there, I think that's how we do that, Lorianne. I think we get our wins because we shouldn't overcomplicate the goal setting process. Like we already have our weekly aspects. And when I work with the team, Patrick, they know that they have three objectives that they're going to be working on for the rest of the week. And I always like to, I'd learned this years ago. It was a 1 door 4 key. So there's one aspect that you're after and there's 4 different keys to get into it. The idea is that you have your 3 major like goals or tasks that you're going after in the week. You're not trying to get it all done in 1 week if it's not possible, but you have 4 days to work on it. You're segmenting time for each of those. You're not going to work more than X number of minutes or hours because then you are not actually accomplishing anything. But the idea is that you're hitting it every day. And then those are where you get to say, you get to look at your wins and go like, yeah, like I did it. And it's funny because I had to check myself on this myself and realize we can think that we're working hard on a lot of things and we just find ourselves doing busy work. Yeah. When we, fast is slow, slow is fast. And when we stop for a moment, sometimes if we actually just focused on 3 or 4 things in an entire day, but we put action on them and we completed it, and we actually got through what we would do in a week is more than we did the previous month because we were just like, pew, 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 pew,
yeah. You know, but the opposite side of that is, so there are some weeks that are going to suck.
Yes.
We're not going to hit shit.
Yes.
Right? And that's okay too. Yeah. And I talk about that, especially from the standpoint of personal goals, of that, you know, setting really stretch goals or where I want to go is really important. But again, I think there's a dance too there, is that the expectation has got to be there. I have to believe that I can hit this thing, but also what I try and balance it with is being grateful for where I am. So I don't let this thing hijack me. I don't look around and say, oh, somebody's doing it better than I am, or, you know, they make more money than I do, or they've got a bigger house or a bigger boat or more followers, whatever it is that I love chasing people. Just like in road races, I would always find people, we call them rabbits, and I'm going to catch you. And then after I get to you, I'll find somebody else. But when I finish the race, I don't sit there and think I suck because I didn't get the last person I was trying to chase down, right? I aspired to that, but it doesn't define who I am, right? And to me, that's the gratitude part. Like, I love when we're in the marina and I see somebody that's got a bigger boat that I love, I'm like, love that boat. But I don't look at mine and think, I suck, my boat, right? I don't care.
Yeah, you can go like, Rigo doesn't have a boat.
Yeah.
I have a boat. Like, right. No, you know, the thing is, I mean, if we're not keeping track, right, Patrick, if we're not keeping score of our own growth, if we're not looking at where we are, like, yeah, I agree. I can easily say like, oh, I'm so tired, but I can look back and go, look how far we've come. Right. But you've got to be tracking what you're doing to know how far you've come.
Yeah. And some people are more competitive than others. Like for me, I could turn taking the trash out into a contest. You know, it's just like, how fast can I do it backwards? Whatever it is.
I took it out before the neighbors did. I don't know about you, but it's kind of a competition for me when I pull the trash cans in and I'm like, like mine's in and the rest of them are still out, those lazy bums. Call the HOA on this one. Hey, Patrick, did we go ahead? What?
No, I was just going to say, my wife thinks I'm twisted. Although we don't have plastic bags anymore for going to the grocery store. But my challenge was always like, how many bags can I carry in to the house at the same time?
I've never breaking
failed
anything.
Patrick, I've never failed to not do it all at once. I'm sorry. I don't care how long it takes me, how many fingers I won't feel for hours after. They're all coming in one shot. You need
to like exchange pictures of.
Yeah, look at Donnie said one trip and one trip only. Let me tell you what, 6 kids, Donnie can tell you this was not an easy task. It was ridiculous. It looked stupid. It looked ridiculous. And sometimes there was casualties. Not everything made it.
Like eggs.
No. Eggs, man. I love eggs. Eggs were always, they were always protected. The eggs and bread, that would piss me off when the kids would help. I'm like, no, you put that on the bottom.
Yeah, the bread was now like a tortilla shell.
Look, Donnie just said it. I caught a jug of milk with my ankles once. He saw it. It fell, and I'm holding everything, and I slammed my legs together, and I caught it with my ankles. Boom.
Lori, is this it? Is this where we just go? We just get off again, right? It's just way off.
Yep. Okay, this is bringing it right back.
All right,
and
so
for all our
got
entrepreneurs out there,
we've got a few more minutes left. Now, did we finish the T in the sets?
We did. It was time bomb.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. I mean, I'm not T. The S.
It's
So it
just
was set, not sets.
Yeah, three letters.
You can do sets.
Even simpler. We'll do sets of set. Okay.
Now think about this, right?
That's where I was at. That was it. I was just asking about the S.
So now what you do is you ask yourself, are my goals set? Are my goals set? Are they specific, emotional, or time bound?
I love this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And when you look at Grow too, and all of these little areas and these tips, these are great ways to evaluate where you're at, work with your team, and understand how you're developing. And you've made a comment to this already a number of times, Patrick, but I think it's really important for those in a management role to understand, like, your job is to support your team. Right. Your job is to give them tools and physical, emotional support to help them get there, right?
Right. And to that point, if they don't feel, if they're not in an environment where there is trust that you are an advocate for them, you're going to find the bar is going to get set lower because they're going to look to what's safe. Yep. What do I know I can achieve that's safe, that I don't get the stick if I don't hit this?
Yeah. And you're not going to get the individual that's willing to, like you said, and I wrote this down, drive your own development. Yeah. And I think that's important. That's when you stop becoming a mentor, leader / manager. That's when you become a dictator or a babysitter. Because if these individuals that are working in your team are not willing to drive their own development, well, there's two reasons. Number one, you haven't given them an atmosphere and a safe space and environment to know that they're there to try to drive the best out of themselves, and you're there to support them, right? Or 100%. This is where you need to reevaluate the individual in your team.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we have time for me to drop one more?
We do. Right. We have a few more minutes left. Yes. And then we got to go.
So here's where you can think about this in terms of as a manager, as a leader, what's important here. There's a gentleman named David Rock who came up with this model, another one called S.M.A.R.T. It's based on 5 social needs that we all have: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And if you think about many of those social needs that your employees have, as you are interacting with them, when you satisfy those, right? Autonomy is helping them set their own goals, right? They feel like they're part of the process. Status is listening, respecting them. Certainty is letting them know sort of what's involved in this. Where's this going to go? Relatedness, I think, creates a sense of we're in this together, you're part of this team. And fairness is, this is the way everybody's setting their goals here. When we satisfy all 5 of those social needs, it makes it very easy for you to start setting real, challenging, and doable goals.
I love that. Patrick, you talked about towards the end of the show, because we're getting ready to wrap up. First off, I want to thank you guys all for being here again, Patrick as well. And I want to let those who are watching right now, I forgot to ask you in the beginning, but if you're watching live, do us a favor and drop a hashtag live. It's a replay, a hashtag replay. We also want to make sure that you guys are following us on social media. It's real simple. You go to our pages, you go to the follow, ta-da, real simple. And that goes for myself, Patrick, and Lorianne. We want to continue to bring value to you. If you like the content that we're producing here, if you like the information, let us know, drop some stuff in the comments and the chats, and we would love to see you subscribe for our weekly newsletter where we do a recap on this show and all of our other programs. And we give you more information on how to reach wonderful guests like Patrick Verneau. So I want to give you a moment here, Patrick, to, it's an inside joke. They don't know. They don't know. Shh. They don't know. They don't need to know. Okay. Shh.
Right. Your secret is safe.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. But Patrick, I want to give you
LinkedIn profile for the real video.
What? All right, look. Let's stay professional, Lorianne. Let's stay focused here. She's rolling her eyes. Me? Okay. Patrick, I'm going to give you the opportunity here to kind of close us out. Give us some final words. Talked about this. You said there was a book you wanted to reference. And then, Lorianne, I'm going to come back to you, as always, to give us some final thoughts as we get out of here. So, Patrick, it's all you.
So I'd just say there is so much to goal setting, and it doesn't have to be as difficult or as cumbersome, but you got to have a system. And if you write things down, the likelihood you're going to achieve them is far greater. And the last thing that I would leave it with is that the tagline that I will always use is rise above your best. Not anybody else's best, rise above your best, because you can always do something better than you did the day before. That's it.
Oh, that's great, Patrick. Thank you for that. And I would say if you don't have a team that you're leading, if you're a solopreneur, it's just you, use what you've learned here and create your own accountability system, whether that's you find somebody. Something that I use is I created a Google form, and I actually check in with myself every single week, and I just keep track of it so that I can go and see basically the Google Sheets and see how I'm doing quarterly, weekly, monthly, all that good stuff to evaluate my own performance.
Of course you do. Of course you do. We love you, Lorianne, but yeah, of course. You remind me of every girl I knew in high school that I was friends with that I sat next to on purpose. Because you helped me get through school. Because sure, here's my notes for the last week. Here's all you need. Okay, thanks. Because I was out late. You guys, I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, I am grateful that you are here. I hope that we continue to bring value to you in this program. We enjoy what we do. We love bringing leaders, mentors, and speakers like this to you because we believe that, they have something to say, and hopefully you can learn from it. I do every single time. Patrick, thank you so much. I'm honored that you've come on the show again, our frequent flyer. One more and you get a free trip.
Nowhere.
To nowhere. I love it. All right, you guys, thanks for being here again. The Contagious Leadership Podcast live. We will see you again next week, same time. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Peace.